The concept of domicile is, which Dom refers to here, is quite an interesting and complex area. Domicile relates to where somebody considers their lifetime home to be, or where they consider that they belong. So it's got nothing to do with where somebody is resident or where they were born. To all intents and purposes, it's a very different concept. The whole idea behind the non-dom process was to try and attract wealthy individuals who could be beneficial to investing in the UK to come to the UK and provide them with an attractive tax status in doing so. So it would effectively give them the option of paying tax only on income that is generated in the UK, and money that they left outside of the UK or income that they earned outside of the UK wouldn't be taxable. What that provided, therefore, for those individuals was the ability for them to pay a significant lesser amount of tax than UK residents would do in the normal course of affairs. So the removal of that non-dom option will basically mean that those individuals living in the UK will now be taxed in exactly the same way as everybody else, which obviously will increase revenues. What it could, however, lead to is those individuals choosing to move abroad or move to taxation climates elsewhere, and that could obviously be a negative. It has been a debate that's been raging for a long time about, one, the benefits of getting these people into the country, but then on the other side of the coin, the unfairness of them paying significantly less tax and therefore not paying their fair share of the running of the country. So I think that is the reason why it's come in. We will see where it takes us in terms of whether they stay or whether they go and in what quantity, and whether or not other means of making it attractive for them to stay might be announced in the future. It's probably not going to have any significant effect in terms of, in comparison to other of the changes in the budget. That being said, what it means is that for those people whose revenue is less than the new 90,000 threshold, and it's gone from 85,000 to 90,000, they won't be required to register for VAT. Registering for VAT is quite a big deal and takes a lot of work and creates a heck of a lot of hassle. And therefore, those that don't need to register will certainly heave a huge sigh of relief. The government's got pretty good at telegraphing what is in the budget ahead of the budget actually taking place. So it has become quite unusual for there to be any significant surprises in budgets, and I think this would be classified as one of those. I think on an annual basis, whenever the budget is there is always talk about things like the removal of pension, the tax-free cash on pensions, and probably a lot of the talk this time was focused in the potential for the government to remove inheritance tax, and of course that didn't happen at the end of the day. Probably if I was to pick the biggest surprise, it was probably the reduction in national insurance, given that he'd already announced a reduction in the autumn statement of 2023. So to follow that up with another significant reduction that would affect both employed and self-employed in a positive way was probably the biggest surprise for me.